You were told Taurus was the sign of loyalty, of beauty, of devotion. But no one told you the other side of the story, that for Taurus, the very gift of holding on is also the curse of losing. Again and again, those born under the bull feel the sting of watching what they love slip away. Relationships, security, even the treasures they thought would last forever. Why? Why does Taurus, the keeper of beauty and stability, so often face heartbreak and loss? Why is the sign of comfort bound to cycles of grief? The truth is older than astrology. It is carved in myth, whispered in temples, and written in the scars of history. And once you see it, you'll never look at Taurus the same way again. Taurus is often painted in glowing colors, the sign of loyalty, of patience, of stability and beauty. Born under Venus, it is said to crave comfort, to cultivate harmony, to build gardens both literal and symbolic, where others may rest. Taurus is the archetype of devotion, the one who holds on when all else crumbles, who resists change in a world that never stops shifting. But hidden inside that devotion is a burden, a weight that few speak of. Because what Taurus carries is not only the gift of constancy, but also the pain of clinging to what cannot be held. In astrology, Taurus is fixed earth. The bull digs its hooves deep, rooting itself into soil, refusing to be moved. This gives Taurus resilience, an ability to endure storms that uproot others. Yet the same strength becomes its trap. What it builds, it cannot release. What it loves, it cannot imagine losing. The very constancy that makes Taurus trustworthy also binds it to grief when life, in its endless motion, demands surrender. Here is the paradox. To be Taurus is to crave permanence in a universe of impermanence. Ancient cultures understood this duality. In Mesopotamia, the bull of heaven was feared and revered, a force of fertility but also destruction. In Egypt, the Apis bull was a living god, carrying both the blessing of renewal and the shadow of sacrifice. The bull stood as a symbol of power and abundance, yet myths consistently wove into its image the themes of loss, death, and rebirth. Even the constellation of Taurus, marked by the bright Pleiades, tells the story of beauty pursued and lost. The daughters of Atlas chased across the heavens. Taurus is never just comfort. It is comfort always shadowed by the inevitability of change. Psychology echoes the same truth. Attachment, while essential for love, can become imprisonment when it hardens into possession. The bull holds not only the field, but the fence around it. Taurus longs for stability so deeply that it often confuses control with safety, and when control slips away, as it always does, the pain cuts deeper. This is why those born under Taurus so often face loss, not because the universe singles them out for punishment, but because their greatest lesson is to learn that love is not ownership, and beauty cannot be preserved by force. The burden of the bull is not weakness, but a shadow of its strength. To be grounded, steady, and loyal is noble, yet to cling to what must move is suffering. Taurus lives in this tension between the desire to hold and the truth that all things pass. Until this lesson is faced, the cycle repeats, building gardens only to watch storms tear them apart, loving deeply only to grieve when love changes form. And yet, within this burden lies the seed of awakening. Because once Taurus learns to release, to love without clinging, its stability becomes freedom instead of chains. The bull no longer carries its weight as a curse, but as a gift. Strength without possession, beauty without fear, devotion without loss. This is the hidden destiny of Taurus. But first, the burden must be seen for what it is. Desire is the root that anchors Taurus to the earth, and that root belongs to Venus. She is the planet of longing, of attraction, of the mysterious pull that draws one soul toward another, or a heart toward a vision of beauty. In Taurus, her influence is tangible. It is not just the idea of love, it is the touch of skin, the taste of ripe fruit, the feel of soil between fingers, the security of possessions, the warmth of being held. For Taurus, desire is never abstract. It is embodied. It is lived through the senses. And yet, within this sensual embrace lies both the gift and the wound. Venus teaches that beauty cannot be owned, only experienced. But Taurus, so deeply tied to the material, often tries to hold it still, to grasp the rose before it wilts, to claim the lover before they drift, to fix wealth in place before fortune changes. The instinct is natural. Desire whispers, if you can hold it, you will not lose it. But here lies the paradox. The tighter Taurus clings, the more easily love slips away. What begins as devotion can harden into possession. What begins as security can calcify into fear. And Venus, patient but unyielding, teaches again and again that nothing in form is permanent. The mythology of Venus, or Aphrodite as the Greeks named her, reveals this truth. She was born from the foam of the sea, beauty itself rising from chaos. She belonged to no one, though many tried to claim her. Even the gods could not confine her. She moved as she pleased, bestowing desire, stirring hearts, and reminding mortals that love is not a cage, but a current. For Taurus, this myth is not distant. It is personal. It is the soul's reminder that what is loved cannot be locked away. To attempt it is to destroy its essence. Astrologers often describe Venus's rulership as shaping Taurus's need for value and stability. But beneath the surface is the shadow, the fear of loss. This fear drives the desire to possess, to build walls around what is loved, to guard resources fiercely, to cling to relationships long after they have ended in spirit. On the outside, it looks like greed or stubbornness, but at its core, it is longing. Longing so deep it becomes terrified of absence. This is why Taurus feels losses so intensely. When something fades, it does not feel like change. It feels like theft. Venus does not punish this fear. She reveals it through repetition. Each heartbreak, each financial loss, each unraveling of stability is a mirror. The lesson is whispered. You cannot lose what you never owned. You can only cherish what passes through your life. And when Taurus finally understands, longing shifts into gratitude. Desire softens into appreciation. The hunger for possession dissolves, and in its place rises a deeper truth, that love, beauty, and abundance are not outside treasures to be seized. They are reflections of the inner radiance that no loss can ever touch. Earth is steady. Earth is dependable. It holds the roots of trees, the bones of ancestors, the foundations of every temple ever built. For Taurus, born under the fixed sign of Earth, this element is both blessing and burden. It gives the strength to endure, to build, to create beauty that lasts. But within that very gift is the shadow of heaviness. What holds can also trap. What grounds can also bury. To be Taurus is to carry the weight of Earth, and to learn how to live without being crushed by it. The Earth element is stability. Taurus instinctively seeks solid ground, both in material life and in relationships. Unlike the fire signs, which burn for change, or the air signs, which chase movement, Taurus finds comfort in constancy. The bull wants to know where it stands. It wants to trust that the soil beneath its feet will not shift. And so it builds carefully, patiently, creating homes, gardens, and bonds meant to last. This is Taurus at its best, the dependable friend, the loyal partner, the builder who shapes beauty out of raw matter. But Earth, when too heavy, becomes inertia. The same stability that comforts can harden into resistance. The bull plants its feet, refusing to move even when the field has gone barren. This is why Taurus is known for stubbornness. It is not merely pride. It is the fear of uprooting, the terror of losing ground. Better to endure discomfort than to risk the unknown. Better to cling to what is crumbling than to step into uncertainty. This is the paradox of Earth. It nourishes, but it can also suffocate. Mythology reflects this duality. In Greek lore, the Titan Atlas carried the weight of the heavens upon his shoulders, the ultimate image of endurance, but also of imprisonment. His burden was eternal, his strength unbreakable, yet he was trapped by the very weight he carried. Taurus mirrors this myth. The gift of endurance becomes a sentence of heaviness when the bull cannot release. In Egyptian cosmology, Geb, the earth god, represented fertility and abundance, but also the inescapable pull of matter. His embrace was nurturing, but it bound all beings to the cycles of birth and decay. Psychology offers a parallel in attachment theory. Security grounds us, gives us a base from which to grow. But when attachment turns to fixation, it becomes fear of change. This is often Taurus's struggle. The bull craves safety so deeply that it resists anything that threatens its stability. Yet life itself is change. To resist too strongly is to suffer. To cling too tightly is to break. And so, the lesson of the earth element for Taurus is not to abandon stability, but to hold it lightly, to root deeply without fearing movement, to build beauty without trying to freeze it. The earth teaches presence, not possession. It teaches the patience of seeds, that stability is not the absence of change, but the trust that even when seasons shift, life will return. For Taurus, the challenge is to transform the weight of earth into strength without chains, to stand grounded yet free, to endure yet not cling, to be steady but not immovable. Only then does the gift of earth shine as blessing, not burden. In the beginning, before the bull was simply an animal of the field, it was a god. Across the ancient world, the bull stood as a living symbol of fertility, power, and divine strength. For Taurus, this history is written into the soul itself. The golden age of the bull was not a metaphor. It was a reality, carved into temples and sung in hymns that echoed through Mesopotamia, Egypt, and beyond. To understand Taurus, we must step into those sacred halls, smell the incense, hear the chants, and witness the bull crowned not as beast, but as deity. In Mesopotamia, the bull of heaven roared through myth. The goddess Ishtar, spurned by Gilgamesh, unleashed the bull to punish him. Its hooves split the earth, its breath scorched the fields, its rage threatened to destroy all. Yet Gilgamesh and Enkidu struck it down. Here we see the paradox of the bull, divine abundance, but also divine wrath. For Taurus, this myth lingers like a shadow. Love can bless, but when twisted by desire, it can destroy. The bull of heaven was not simply a monster. It was the embodiment of longing unfulfilled, of power misused, of attachment turned violent. In Egypt, the bull was worshipped in living form. The Apis bull, chosen for its sacred markings, was treated as a god on earth. Priests adorned it with jewelry, paraded it before the people, and fed it delicacies as though it were Pharaoh himself. Crowds gathered to bow before it, seeing in its eyes the eternal breath of Ptah. When the Apis bull died, it was embalmed and entombed with reverence, a funeral fit for kings. Yet here too was the paradox. The god they revered was destined to die. The very symbol of divine life force was also a lesson in impermanence. Taurus, drawn to beauty and stability, must face the same truth. Even what is most sacred cannot be held forever. In Greece, the bull became shadow and labyrinth. The minotaur, half man and half bull, imprisoned in the maze, devoured those cast into its darkness. It represented the animal side of desire, unbridled and consuming. And yet, the myth also holds liberation. Theseus slayed the minotaur not with brute strength alone, but with cunning, guided by Ariadne's thread. The bull's shadow was conquered through awareness, through remembrance of the path. Taurus too must learn that strength alone is not enough. The labyrinth of attachment requires clarity of mind, the thread of awareness leading beyond possession. And above all, written in the stars, the constellation of Taurus carries perhaps the most haunting myth. Zeus, desiring Europa, transformed himself into a white bull. Gentle, radiant, he carried her across the sea on his back, away from her homeland, into a destiny she had not chosen. Desire disguised as devotion, seduction cloaked in beauty. The bull again is both gift and thief, both savior and captor. For Taurus, this myth speaks directly. What you love most may be what carries you away. The golden age of the bull reveals that Taurus is not simply comfort and stability. Its soul memory is entwined with gods who gave abundance and demanded sacrifice, with myths of longing, destruction, and loss. To be Taurus is to inherit this sacred paradox, that what is most beautiful is also fleeting, and that what seems divine may also be the snare. The bull was always holy, but holiness in the ancient world was never safe. There was a time when the bull ruled the heavens. The age of Taurus, stretching back nearly 5,000 years, was marked by stability, agriculture, and the worship of the great bovine gods. Humanity plowed the earth, stored grain, and built temples aligned with the stars of the bull. The Pleiades, shining in the constellation of Taurus, were seen as celestial guides for planting and harvest. Life was organized around fertility, wealth, and the slow, dependable rhythms of the earth. For Taurus, this was the age of exaltation. Its archetype was not merely astrological, it was the blueprint of civilization itself. But cosmic time is never still. Just as the earth spins, the heavens turn, and the equinoxes shift across the constellations in cycles known as the Great Ages. Around 2000 BCE, the age of Taurus yielded to the age of Aries, and with it, the bull began to fall. The shift was not gentle. It was marked by upheaval, conquest, and the rise of a new archetype, the ram, symbol of fire, force, and war. Where Taurus had cultivated and preserved, Aries charged forward, burned, and conquered. Humanity itself shifted gears. Nomadic warriors replaced settled farmers, and the sword was raised above the plow. The world's devotion to the bull was not erased, but it was supplanted. And with that shift, the archetype of Taurus carried a new imprint: loss. The myths record this transition with haunting clarity. In Mesopotamia, bull worship faded as warrior kings demanded glory through conquest. In Egypt, reverence for the Apis bull remained, but dynasties were toppled by invasions and temples were looted. In Crete, the Minoan bull cult was destroyed in a cataclysm, its labyrinth swallowed by natural disaster or invasion. The sacred bull, once sovereign, was sacrificed to history itself. This cosmic dethroning imprinted a memory in the Taurus archetype. It encoded the experience of having abundance stripped away, of seeing what was sacred diminished, of watching stability yield to chaos. The age of Aries brought the gods of fire and battle, Yahweh with his jealous wrath, Aries with his insatiable hunger for war. The gentle constancy of Taurus no longer defined the age. It became the shadow, the one who clung to what was passing. And so Taurus learned loss not only in personal life, but in the grand cycles of the cosmos. Astrologically, this shift explains why Taurus struggles so profoundly with change. Its very soul remembers being dethroned. It remembers an age when it was revered as the center, and the trauma of watching that center collapse. Where once it was the gardener of the world, now it was forced to endure the flames of Aries. To this day, Taurus carries the echo of that fall. Its archetype is burdened not only with desire and stability, but with the ancestral memory of having it all taken away. And yet, as with all loss, there is also transformation. The fall of Taurus was not its end. It was its initiation. The bull learned that even cosmic ages turn, that no archetype can reign forever. From this wound comes wisdom, to build, but not to cling, to love, but not to possess, to endure, but not to resist the tides of time. This is why Taurus today so often confronts loss. It is the echo of a cosmic story. The bull once ruled the heavens, but the heavens moved on, and the lesson of its fall remains carved in the stars. Desire is the most beautiful of Venus's gifts. It awakens the senses, draws souls together, inspires art, music, and devotion. In Taurus, ruled by this planet of love and longing, desire feels natural, as though it were the heartbeat of life itself. Yet beneath the fragrance of roses is always the thorn. For Venus's shadow is possession. What begins as longing can become chains. What begins as love can harden into ownership. And for Taurus, this shadow is a recurring test, one that binds the soul until it learns to see beyond it. The ancients knew Venus as Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty and irresistible attraction. She was worshipped for her power to unite lovers, to spark fertility, to bless the harvest with abundance. But she was also feared for the havoc she caused. Her affairs ignited wars. Her jealousies toppled kings. Her allure bound gods themselves in chains of obsession. In Taurus, this myth plays out not in Olympian courts, but in the human heart. The bull desires beauty and stability so deeply that it risks confusing love with possession, devotion with control. To Taurus, what is loved feels like it must be secured. Yet to secure too tightly is to strangle the very life of love. Psychology names this impulse attachment. At its healthiest, it nurtures trust, intimacy, and growth. At its shadow, it breeds jealousy, obsession, and fear of loss. Taurus lives in this paradox more than most. Its need for security amplifies Venus's pull, turning simple affection into dependence, turning beauty into something that must be guarded. This is why Taurus so often fears betrayal, why it clings to relationships long past their flourishing, why loss cuts so deeply. The chains are invisible, but they are forged of desire itself. Sacred texts across cultures warned of this shadow. In Gnostic teachings, the archons were said to entrap souls by binding them with illusions of desire. To mistake love for ownership was to remain trapped in the counterfeit world. In Hindu philosophy, the Sanskrit word maya points to the veil of illusion, especially in the realm of attachment. To cling to what is fleeting is to mistake the shadow for the substance. Even Buddhism speaks of tanha, craving, as the root of suffering. In each tradition, the message is clear. Desire can elevate or enslave. It is not the presence of longing that imprisons, but the attempt to hold it in place. For Taurus, the danger lies in mistaking permanence for love, to believe that beauty must last to be real, to think that stability must never change to be true. Yet Venus, in her wisdom, continually reminds the bull that love is not owned, only experienced. Beauty is not preserved, only lived, and every attempt to chain it breaks it. The lesson is painful, often learned through heartbreak, betrayal, or loss. But within the pain is the awakening, to love without chains, to desire without clinging, to hold without fear. This is the shadow of Venus in Taurus. It is the test of whether love becomes a prison or a path, whether desire becomes possession or appreciation. And until this lesson is learned, Taurus will continue to feel the sting of losing what it tried to hold. The goddess offers her gifts freely, but to misuse them is to discover the sharpness of her shadow. Taurus is fixed earth, and with that comes a natural longing for permanence. Yet astrology shows us that permanence is an illusion, and nowhere is this clearer than in the houses that deal with endings, transformation, and release. The second house, ruled by Taurus, is about possessions, resources, and what we value. Directly opposite lies the 8th house, ruled by Scorpio, which is about loss, death, and rebirth. This polarity tells the story of Taurus's greatest struggle. What Taurus clings to, the 8th house demands to take away. What Taurus calls mine, the 8th house dissolves into shared, hidden, or even vanished resources. Here, the bull meets its shadow. The 8th house is a place of surrender. It governs inheritances, debts, betrayals, intimacy, and the mysteries of life and death. For Taurus, whose instinct is to hold, this house feels like enemy territory. It asks the bull to release control, to face loss directly, to step into transformation rather than resist it. Scorpio, ruler of this domain, mirrors everything Taurus resists: secrecy against transparency, passion against comfort, endings against stability. When Taurus planets fall into the 8th house, the individual often experiences repeated lessons in letting go. Sudden financial upheavals, relationships ending through betrayal, or deep encounters with mortality. It is not punishment, but initiation. The house of death and rebirth forces Taurus to learn that nothing material lasts. The 12th house, often called the house of undoing, holds another challenge. It governs what is hidden, forgotten, or dissolved into the collective. Here, Taurus faces the loss of self, of ego, of certainty. The 12th house teaches surrender not just of possessions, but of identity. Mystics saw this house as the realm of moksha, liberation from the wheel. Yet for Taurus, who longs to preserve, the 12th house can feel like annihilation. It strips away illusions of control, leaving only presence. If the bull resists, it suffers. But if it softens into surrender, the 12th house becomes the doorway to transcendence. Even in astrology's mechanics, the message is echoed. The second house of Taurus is comfort. The 8th house opposite. It is transformation. The 6th house is routine and daily stability. Opposite, the 12th is dissolution and letting go. Each Taurus placement carries this tension. Life builds the structure, then tests it with collapse. It offers love, then takes it away. It grants security, then shakes the ground beneath it. And each time, the soul of Taurus is asked, will you cling and break, or surrender and awaken? Ancient astrologers often wrote that Taurus carries karmic lessons around possession and value. The bull is tasked not with avoiding loss, but with enduring it, learning through it, and discovering a deeper wealth that cannot be stolen. In the houses of transformation and release, Taurus discovers its shadow, but also its liberation. For only by facing what is taken can Taurus learn what was never meant to be kept. The story of Europa and the bull is one of the most haunting myths tied to Taurus. It begins on a shore where Europa, daughter of a Phoenician king, wandered among the flowers with her maidens. Out of the sea came a magnificent white bull, shining, gentle, its horns curved like crescents of the moon. Unlike other beasts, this bull did not inspire fear. Its eyes were soft, its movements calm, and Europa felt drawn to it as though it radiated safety. She approached, caressed its flanks, and eventually climbed onto its back, and in that moment, the bull leapt into the waves. The bull was Zeus in disguise. His desire for Europa burned so fiercely that he cloaked himself in beauty and trust to lure her. He carried her across the sea to Crete, where she bore him children who would shape the destinies of kings. But what was left behind was innocence stolen, a family torn apart, and a girl who thought she had found comfort, only to be carried into an unknown fate. This myth is not merely a tale of gods and mortals. It is an echo of Taurus's archetype itself, drawn to what appears stable, what feels safe, only to discover that love can also uproot and beauty can conceal captivity. The Greeks enshrined this story in the heavens. The constellation of Taurus, with its radiant Pleiades, was a celestial reminder of Europa's abduction. To look upon the stars of the bull was to remember the paradox of desire, that what enchants can also ensnare, that what promises safety may be the very force that carries one away. Taurus, ruled by Venus, is deeply entangled in this lesson. Desire for love, for beauty, for devotion. These are noble longings, but the myth warns of their shadow. When longing blinds discernment, when devotion becomes naivety, the bull can carry the soul into loss. Europa's story has been retold for centuries as a metaphor of transformation. She leaves her homeland unwillingly, loses her innocence, but emerges as queen and mother of a new line. This echoes Taurus's deeper lesson. Loss does not annihilate, it reshapes. The pain of being carried away becomes the seed of new destiny, yet the shadow remains. The abduction is never gentle. The bull does not ask permission. And so Taurus is reminded that love without awareness can take more than it gives. Innocence carried away, beauty masking danger, devotion leading to loss. These are not abstract archetypes. They are patterns Taurus encounters again and again. The soul of the bull longs to trust, to rest, to love deeply. But until discernment is learned, desire may disguise itself as safety, and what begins as enchantment may end in grief. Europa's myth lingers as warning and initiation. To climb onto the bull is to risk being carried far from what you know. To recognize its true nature is to begin the path toward wisdom. Saturn, in every chart, is the taskmaster, the lord of time, the slow planet that moves with inevitability, placing obstacles where we least want them and cutting away what we cling to most. For Taurus, this presence is especially heavy because the bull is fixed earth. It resists change, clings to beauty, and seeks permanence. But Saturn does not tolerate illusions of permanence. Its scythe, sharp and unyielding, arrives to remind Taurus that nothing in form lasts forever. Where Taurus builds, Saturn tests. Where Taurus holds, Saturn cuts. This dynamic defines much of the pain and the growth of the bull. In astrology, Saturn rules limitation, discipline, endings, and maturity. It is associated with Kronos, the Greek god of time, who devoured his own children so they could not overthrow him. Kronos represents time's relentless appetite, consuming all things created. For Taurus, whose soul longs for stability, Saturn becomes the stern teacher who ensures that clinging will always end in loss. Each time Taurus grips too tightly, to a person, to a possession, to a sense of security, Saturn eventually intervenes. The scythe swings, and what was clung to is cut away. It feels cruel, but the cruelty hides a deeper truth. Without release, there is no growth. We see this in Saturn returns, the approximately 29-year cycle when Saturn revisits its place in the natal chart. For Taurus, these periods often coincide with dramatic shifts in security, relationships, or resources. Jobs end, homes are lost, relationships break down. The bull, which may have built steadily for decades, is forced to confront impermanence in a way that cannot be ignored. Saturn returns cut attachments not to destroy Taurus, but to strip away what is false, stagnant, or illusory. The process is painful, yet it builds resilience. Mythology echoes this lesson. The scythe is Saturn's weapon, and it was with this blade that Kronos castrated his father Uranus, ending one order so that another could begin. This myth mirrors Saturn's role in every life, cutting away what no longer serves, even when it feels unbearable. For Taurus, the symbolism is personal. When Saturn moves through Taurus, or aspect Taurus placements, it enacts the archetype of the scythe. The bull's carefully cultivated gardens may be destroyed by storms, its cherished relationships tested by time, its wealth diminished by forces beyond control. Each cut is a lesson. Stability cannot come from clinging to the external. True security must grow from within. Psychology frames this in terms of resilience. Repeated exposure to loss, though painful, builds the capacity to endure. For Taurus, Saturn's lessons forge inner strength from external collapse. Each time the scythe falls, the bull learns that it can still stand, and in time it learns to build not from fear of loss, but from acceptance of change. This is Saturn's gift hidden in its cruelty. Maturity, wisdom, and a stability that cannot be taken. The bull and the scythe are not enemies. They are partners in a dance of growth. Taurus builds, Saturn tests. Taurus clings, Saturn cuts. And in this rhythm, the bull learns to release its burden and discover the kind of permanence that time itself cannot erode. The permanence of spirit, not possession. Taurus builds. It plants gardens, not just of soil, but of life itself. The bull is a sign that loves to cultivate. Homes filled with warmth, relationships rooted in loyalty, and beauty crafted patiently from steady hands. In Taurus's heart, this is the dream, to create something lasting, something safe, something that no storm could ever take away. And yet, time and again, the storm comes. The garden is shaken. What was carefully nurtured is torn apart. For Taurus, this is not just misfortune. It is the archetypal pattern of its soul. Why does this happen? In the language of astrology, Taurus is ruled by Venus, planet of beauty and stability, but directly across its sky stands Scorpio, ruled by Mars and Pluto, planets of endings, transformation, and death. The polarity between them ensures that what Taurus builds is always tested by forces of destruction. To cling is to suffer. To release is to grow. This polarity is written into Taurus's experience of life itself. History mirrors this truth. Ancient civilizations knew that abundance and disaster walked hand in hand. The Egyptians built their wealth from the flooding of the Nile. Every year, the waters destroyed crops, homes, and boundaries. Yet the same floods deposited the fertile silt that made the land bloom again. Mesopotamia lived by the Tigris and Euphrates, rivers that gave life but also unleashed devastation. To plant in these lands was to accept the storm as part of the garden. Taurus carries this ancestral memory. It longs to build beauty that lasts, yet it is tied to cycles of destruction that cannot be avoided. Modern astrology adds another layer. Uranus, planet of upheaval, has been moving through Taurus in recent years. Its influence brings sudden change, shock, and revolution. For the bull, which craves stability, Uranus feels like lightning in a still field. It overturns patterns, disrupts security, forces freedom where the soul had clung to comfort. For many born under Taurus or carrying strong Taurus placements, this transit awakens the archetypal storm more vividly than ever. The garden is shaken, not to punish, but to prepare the ground for something new. And still, the pain is real. Taurus builds with love. Every stone in the wall, every seed in the soil, every act of devotion carries the weight of the heart. To watch it collapse feels unbearable. Yet beneath the grief is a deeper truth. Beauty is not meant to be preserved in form. It is meant to be experienced, lost, and renewed. The storm is not the end of the garden. It is its renewal. Without the storm, the soil grows barren. Without loss, love becomes possession. Without endings, beginnings never come. Taurus's lesson is to build without clinging, to love without fear, to know that every storm is already carrying the seeds of tomorrow. The bull must learn that the garden is not destroyed, it is transformed. And in that transformation lies the secret of abundance that cannot be taken away. The moon governs the tides, the cycles of fertility, the rhythms of growth and decline. It moves swiftly, changing signs every 2.5 days, casting its shifting light across the zodiac. For Taurus, a sign that craves stability, these lunar tides are not gentle ripples. They are constant reminders that nothing stays still. The bull longs for permanence, but the moon whispers again and again that all things wax and wane. This is why Taurus feels the pull of the lunar cycles so strongly, why the full moons and new moons seem to stir emotions that are buried deep, and why loss and renewal echo more powerfully for this sign than most. Taurus is fixed earth, slow and steady, rooted in the soil. The moon, by contrast, is mutable light, always shifting, always dissolving one phase to prepare for the next. When the bull meets the moon, tension arises. The moon tugs at Taurus's longing to hold steady, to preserve what is beautiful, to freeze time at its most abundant. Yet the lunar cycle insists, nothing remains. The full moon blossoms into fullness only to fade. The new moon begins again, asking for seeds to be planted without guarantee of survival. For Taurus, this rhythm feels like a wound that will not heal. Every gain is shadowed by loss. Every comfort carries the whisper that it will soon change. Astrology has long tied Taurus to the lunar mysteries. Many born with strong Taurus placements find that their moods shift with lunar phases. The full moon in Scorpio, Taurus's opposite sign, often brings crises of intimacy, resources, or endings that cut deep. Eclipses across the Taurus-Scorpio axis, such as those of recent years, have carried particularly intense lessons, uprooting attachments and forcing the bull to confront impermanence. While other signs may experience these events as passing turbulence, Taurus feels them as earthquakes, shaking the very foundations of its stability. Myth mirrors this struggle. In ancient traditions, the moon was often seen as a mother goddess, nurturing, cyclical, but also unpredictable. To love the moon was to accept change, to embrace loss as part of renewal. For Taurus, who is ruled by Venus, the moon's lessons are especially piercing. Venus draws the bull toward beauty and security, but the moon takes them away, insisting that true beauty lies not in holding, but in surrendering. This tension can feel like betrayal, as though the heavens themselves conspire to remind Taurus of what it cannot keep. Yet within this snare lies the hidden teaching. The moon is not the enemy of Taurus. It is the initiator. By confronting the bull with cycles of loss and renewal, it teaches presence. It asks Taurus to cherish the moment, knowing it will pass. To love more deeply, because nothing can be guaranteed. To release, because clinging only deepens the pain. In this way, the lunar cycles refine the Taurus soul, sanding down the fear of change and revealing the strength that comes from living fully in each phase. The lunar snare for Taurus is the trap of resisting what cannot be resisted. But if the bull learns to flow with the moon instead of against it, the cycles no longer feel like chains. They become reminders of eternity hidden within impermanence. The moon teaches Taurus the very thing it most resists, that change is not the enemy of beauty, but its essence. Taurus is the sign of value, of possessions, of the things we hold and call our own. But what happens when ownership does not end with death? When the soul, carrying memory like invisible baggage, drags its attachments from one lifetime into another. This is where the karma of possession takes root. Taurus, more than many signs, carries the weight of these karmic echoes. What it clings to in one life often resurfaces in the next, not as comfort, but as loss. The universe seems to conspire to strip away what Taurus most desires, until the deeper lesson is learned, that nothing external can truly belong to us. In karmic astrology, the second house, ruled by Taurus, governs material resources, money, and value. Souls with strong Taurus energy often have long histories of wealth, land, or influence. But attachment to these things can create cords that stretch beyond the grave. If in a past life one hoarded resources or clung to relationships with a sense of ownership, the soul may incarnate again with the same patterns. Only now, the story changes. What was once abundant is now precarious. What was once secure is now fragile. Loss becomes the mirror showing the soul what it still refuses to release. The Eastern traditions speak of this in clear terms. In Hinduism and Buddhism, attachment, tanha, or craving, is described as the root of suffering, binding the soul to the wheel of samsara. To cling is to return. And each return carries echoes of the past. A soul that once worshipped gold may now be born into poverty to learn that wealth is not freedom. A soul that once chained others through control may now find itself trapped in bonds of dependency. For Taurus, whose archetype is to hold, these karmic reversals are particularly sharp. Mystical traditions in the West echo the same theme. Gnostic teachings warn that the archons ensnare souls through desire, binding them to the false light of matter. To cling to possessions was to remain within the counterfeit world, blind to the divine spark within. The lesson was always to release, to see that nothing external could secure what was already eternal. For Taurus, this is not philosophy, but lived experience. Each time it loses something cherished, the sting is sharper because the attachment runs deeper. The karma is not random. It is the soul's way of untangling itself from the chains it once forged. Psychology gives us yet another reflection. Trauma often repeats in cycles until it is healed. Families pass down patterns of scarcity, control, or obsession with security, binding generations to the same fears. In karmic language, this is simply the soul replaying its unresolved attachments through bloodlines and circumstances. For Taurus, These cycles are heavy, but they are also opportunities. Each loss is not just personal. It is ancestral. It is karmic. It is the soul's chance to finally break the chain. The karma of possession teaches Taurus that value cannot be hoarded. Love cannot be owned. Security cannot be preserved in form. The lesson is to shift from possession to presence, from ownership to appreciation, from clinging to cherishing. When Taurus learns this, the cycle breaks. The losses stop repeating because the soul has remembered what can never be lost. The inner wealth that no death, no storm, no lifetime can ever take away. The heart is the true temple of Taurus. In the chakra system, it is Anahata, the fourth energy center, the bridge between the earthly and the spiritual, where love flows, where grief is carried, and where surrender is finally learned. For Taurus, ruled by Venus, the heart is not just symbolic. It is the very core of its archetype. Love, stability, beauty, all these live in the heart. And yet this center is also where Taurus feels its deepest wounds, because what is loved most is also what is lost. And in the breaking open of the heart, the bull's greatest initiation begins. The heart chakra is green, expansive, like the spring fields that Taurus longs to cultivate. It governs compassion, trust, the ability to give and receive love. But when blocked, it becomes grief, fear of betrayal, and the refusal to let go. For Taurus, this blockage often comes through attachment. The bull holds what it loves tightly, thinking that to release it would be to lose it forever. Yet the heart chakra teaches a different lesson, that only through opening, only through surrender, can love truly be experienced. Clinging closes the heart. Letting go allows it to breathe. Across traditions, the heart has always been the seat of transformation. In ancient Egypt, the heart was weighed against the feather of Ma'at in the afterlife. If it was heavy with attachment, with grief unhealed, the soul could not ascend. In yoga, Anahata is the place of balance between lower chakras of survival and desire and higher chakras of wisdom and spirit. When open, it brings harmony. When closed, it traps the soul in cycles of longing and loss. Taurus lives in this balance more intensely than most. Each heartbreak, each loss of stability, is a test of whether the heart will close in fear or open in surrender. Psychology mirrors this. Studies show that grief and heartbreak often manifest physically in the chest, even resembling heart disease in what doctors call broken heart syndrome. Taurus, tied so deeply to the physical body, feels this connection profoundly. Loss is not just emotional, it is cellular. It shakes the very ground of the bull's being. And yet, it is through this pain that the heart chakra expands. Grief becomes the doorway to compassion. The wound becomes the opening. The spiritual lesson is clear. For Taurus, the heart chakra is both gift and trial. Its greatest power is love, loyalty, and devotion. Its greatest wound is grief, possession, and the fear of surrender. The soul of Taurus is asked again and again, will you close in pain, or will you open in trust? Every loss is not punishment, it is initiation. Every heartbreak is not an end. It is the breaking open of the heart so that it may hold more. The bull's journey is not to harden against grief, but to allow grief to soften it, to learn that surrender is not defeat, but liberation. When Taurus opens the heart chakra fully, it no longer clings in fear. It loves without chains. It gives without demand. It surrenders without losing itself. And in that surrender, it finds what it has always longed for, a love that cannot be taken because it was never bound to form. It was always infinite, beating at the center of the soul. Taurus is magnetic. There is a softness, a steadiness, a quiet devotion in the bull that draws others near. Ruled by Venus, it radiates a beauty that is not just physical, but energetic. The sense of safety, of warmth, of being held. Lovers, friends, even strangers are drawn to this energy as if to a hearth in the cold. Yet again and again, what Taurus attracts does not remain. Relationships fade, lovers drift away, security unravels. It feels like betrayal. It feels like punishment. But beneath the pain is a deeper archetypal truth. Taurus often calls to itself what must eventually leave, because the soul is being asked to learn love without possession. Astrology explains part of this paradox through polarity. Taurus is fixed earth, longing for permanence. Its opposite sign, Scorpio, rules endings, transformation, and loss. The bull attracts partners, situations, and experiences that embody this Scorpio energy, forcing it into cycles of letting go. It is not random when a Taurus experiences repeated heartbreaks or sudden losses of stability. It is the axis of Taurus-Scorpio at work, drawing the bull into lessons it would not choose but cannot avoid. What is loved deeply often carries within it the seed of departure, so that Taurus may learn not to anchor its worth in what can vanish. Venus, too, holds a shadow here. As the goddess of beauty and desire, she enchants. But her myths are filled with stories of fleeting love. Aphrodite's liaisons with mortals and gods alike rarely endured. They brought ecstasy and tragedy in equal measure. The lesson is clear. Beauty often arrives to awaken, not to stay. For Taurus, who embodies Venus's gifts most fully, this means that what it magnetizes may come only long enough to open the heart, to awaken devotion, and then to go. The soul aches for permanence, but the goddess teaches impermanence. Psychology offers another layer. Attachment theory shows how those who crave security sometimes unconsciously attract partners who fear it. Taurus, in its longing to hold and preserve, may magnetize those who are restless, those who cannot stay, those who carry the archetype of leaving. This repetition is not a curse. It is a mirror. Each time, the bull is shown its own fear. The fear of standing without another. The fear of finding stability within rather than outside. The leaving is the teacher, pressing the soul to discover that true security cannot be abandoned, because it is born inside. Mystics across traditions saw this truth long before psychology gave it language. The Sufis spoke of love as a guest who visits the heart, stirs its depths, and departs, leaving behind the fragrance of divine remembrance. The Buddhists taught that clinging to impermanent forms ensures suffering. In each teaching, love was sacred not because it stayed, but because it transformed. Taurus's pain is that it confuses transformation with loss. But what leaves always plants a seed. Why does Taurus attract what leaves? Because through loss, it learns to love without chains. Because only in the absence of permanence does it awaken to the deeper truth that love itself was never gone, only changing form. The heart breaks, but it also opens. The garden is emptied, but the soil grows richer. The departure is not abandonment, it is initiation. Loss strikes Taurus in ways that feel unbearable. The bull builds carefully, loves deeply, and attaches with its whole being. So when something slips away, a relationship, a dream, a home, a sense of security, the pain cuts through like a blade. It feels like cruelty, like fate has singled out the sign of stability to live without it. Yet beneath this grief lies a hidden truth. Every loss that Taurus endures is also a mirror, and in that mirror, if the bull is willing to look, it sees not only what has been taken, but what remains. it discovers presence, the one treasure that cannot be destroyed. Astrology reveals that Taurus is ruled by Venus, the planet of love, pleasure, and value. Venus draws the bull toward beauty and stability, toward possessions and devotion. But when these external anchors are stripped away, Taurus is forced to confront the heart of the Venusian lesson. Value is not in what is held, but in what is lived. To cling is to lose. To release is to discover the eternal. Each heartbreak, each collapse, carries this same initiation. It is the universe pulling away the veil, showing Taurus that true wealth lies in presence. Mystics across traditions echoed this truth. The Buddha taught that clinging is the root of suffering, that desire for permanence in a changing world creates endless pain. The Sufis sang that the beloved is always present, but that the heart must be emptied of illusion before it can feel the divine. Even Christian mystics whispered that only by losing the world can one inherit the kingdom within. In each tradition, loss was not punishment. It was the path. And for Taurus, whose archetype is bound to stability, this path is both the hardest and the most transformative. Psychology gives us another reflection. Grief, studies show, is not only about the person or thing lost. It is also about the gap created in the present. When we grieve, our awareness is forced into the now. Memories flood in, but they do not belong to the future or the past. They strike us in the moment, pulling us out of distraction, out of illusion, into the raw truth of presence. Taurus feels this more strongly because it resists change more than most. But that resistance is also what makes the eventual surrender so profound. Every loss, then, is not only an ending, it is an invitation. When Taurus looks into the mirror of pain, it sees not just what is gone, but what is eternal. Breath, heartbeat, the stillness of being. Possessions fade, beauty changes, loved ones come and go. But the present moment remains, undiminished, untouched, always here. For Taurus, this discovery is liberation. The bull learns that presence is the one form of stability that cannot be taken, the one treasure that no storm can wash away. The mirror of pain is sharp, and the lessons are never gentle. But through every heartbreak, every collapse, Taurus is being taught the same truth. To stop reaching backward, to stop clinging forward, and to awaken to what is already here. The garden may fall, but the ground remains. Love may depart, but the heart still beats. And in that beating lies the presence that was never lost. The bull and the phoenix are unlikely companions. One is the image of stability, rooted and enduring. The other is the embodiment of transformation, dying and rising again from its own ashes. Yet for Taurus, these two archetypes are bound together. The bull cannot escape the cycles of loss. And each time the garden crumbles, each time love is taken, each time security is shattered, Taurus is asked to embody the phoenix, to rise, renewed, out of what was destroyed. In myth, the phoenix was said to live for centuries before building its nest of fragrant wood and setting itself ablaze. Out of its ashes, a new bird would emerge, radiant, immortal in its cycle of death and rebirth. The Egyptians tied this image to Ra, the sun god, whose daily journey across the sky was mirrored by the phoenix's renewal. In other traditions, the bird symbolized eternity, resilience, and the promise that nothing truly ends. For Taurus, this myth holds the secret key. Destruction is never final. Loss is not annihilation. What falls becomes the ground for what rises. The bull resists this truth. Its nature is to hold, to preserve, to cultivate. When Saturn's scythe cuts, or when Uranus brings sudden upheaval, Taurus feels abandoned, betrayed by the cosmos. Yet if it looks deeper, it sees that what fell away made space for something greater. Relationships that ended left wisdom that could never have been gained otherwise. Wealth that was lost carved strength and resilience. Homes that were abandoned birthed journeys into unknown places. Each ending carried, hidden within its ashes, the seed of renewal. Psychology reflects this mythic truth. Post-traumatic growth, a well-documented phenomenon, shows that many who endure profound loss eventually emerge with greater clarity, deeper compassion, and stronger resilience than before. What feels like devastation becomes the very soil for transformation. For Taurus, this is the phoenix's lesson. What you lose does not define you. What you become afterward does. Mystical traditions affirm the same. Alchemists spoke of the nigredo, the blackening stage, where all form is dissolved before the gold can emerge. Sufi poets wrote of being burned by love until only the essence remained. Even the Christian mystic image of resurrection carries the same teaching. Only what dies can be reborn into eternity. For Taurus, these symbols are not abstract. They are the story of its life. Each heartbreak, each collapse, each storm is the fire. Each recovery is the rising from ash. The bull and the phoenix are two faces of the same soul. The bull teaches devotion, patience, and beauty. The phoenix teaches surrender, transformation, and eternal renewal. When Taurus embraces both, it discovers its true strength. Not the ability to hold forever, but the ability to rise again and again, no matter how many times the storm comes. This is the secret immortality of the bull. Not in possessions, not in permanence, but in its capacity to be reborn. Beauty has always been at the heart of Taurus's longing. It is not just the curve of a lover's face, the shimmer of a garden in bloom, or the glow of a home filled with warmth. For Taurus, beauty is proof that life has meaning, that love and harmony are real. Ruled by Venus, the sign is magnetized toward color, texture, music, and form. All those things that remind the soul that Earth itself is a temple. But herein lies the paradox. Every blossom fades, every face changes, every structure ages, and what Taurus clings to with such devotion inevitably slips through its hands. Venus, as goddess of beauty and desire, teaches a cruel-seeming but profound truth. Beauty was never meant to stay. Its role is not permanence but passage. It arrives, dazzles, inspires and departs, leaving the soul either broken by its loss or awakened by its lesson. In myth, Venus herself was pursued relentlessly, her beauty coveted by gods and mortals alike. Yet she could never be caged. To love her was to accept her fluid nature, her shifting affections, her dance between realms. For Taurus, this myth is not distant. It is lived. Each attachment to beauty carries within it the seed of impermanence. Psychology and spirituality echo this lesson. Carl Jung noted that the pursuit of beauty, whether in art, love, or material possessions, often reflects an archetypal hunger for the eternal, a hunger the material world cannot satisfy. In Buddhist teachings, attachment to beauty is considered one of the most subtle forms of suffering. To desire is natural, but to cling is to ensure pain, for all conditioned things are subject to change. The lotus blooms in radiant glory, but only because it will soon decay. For Taurus, this truth cuts deeply. It feels personal, as if life is conspiring against its longing. Why must what is cherished fade? Why must the things most loved also be the most fragile? The answer is not punishment, but initiation. Beauty fades so that Taurus may learn to trace it back to its source. not in form, but in essence. The body may wrinkle, but the light of love it carried does not vanish. The flower may fall, but the fragrance lingers in memory. The song ends, but the harmony remains etched in the soul. The fading of beauty is not theft, it is revelation. It shows Taurus that what it sought outside is actually within, that true beauty is not borrowed from time, but born of spirit. And when the Taurus soul begins to shift from trying to hold beauty in its hands to embodying it in its heart, the grief of loss becomes the joy of recognition. For then it understands, beauty does not die, it only changes form, and the eye that can see this no longer mourns what fades, but blesses it for having appeared at all. Comfort is sweet to Taurus. It is the soft bed after a long day, the familiar rhythm of a steady routine, the gentle presence of someone who feels like home. The bull, ruled by Venus, seeks peace, harmony, and beauty, and when it finds them, it does not want to let them go. To Taurus, comfort feels like safety. But here lies the hidden trap. Safety can become stagnation. Comfort can become a cage, and what once nourished the soul begins to suffocate it. Astrologers often say that Taurus, as fixed earth, resists change more than any other sign. Its strength is persistence, loyalty, and devotion. Yet these same qualities can bind it to what no longer serves. The job that pays the bills but kills the spirit. The relationship that no longer grows but still feels familiar. The home that is safe but keeps the soul from exploring the world beyond its walls. Comfort becomes the invisible prison, and Taurus, thinking it has secured peace, discovers that it has sacrificed freedom. History shows us that civilizations built on comfort eventually collapse. Rome's golden age of abundance bred complacency, and the empire fell into decadence and decay. Ancient Egypt, too, thrived by the Nile's cycles of plenty, but each dynasty that grew too comfortable was eventually overthrown by the floods of change. The pattern is eternal. Comfort breeds attachment. Attachment resists evolution. And life, which always seeks transformation, eventually tears down what refuses to grow. Psychology confirms this truth. Researchers studying habit and behavior note that humans are wired to seek the familiar, even when it no longer serves their well-being. The brain mistakes the predictable for the safe. But this safety keeps growth at bay. In Taurus, this tendency is magnified. The bull holds onto the known not because it is thriving, but because the unknown feels unbearable. Yet it is only by stepping into the unknown that true expansion is possible. Spiritual traditions call this the danger of the middle path misunderstood. Comfort is meant to be a rest along the way, not the final destination. The Buddha warned against attachment to pleasure, for it creates the same chains as attachment to pain. Sufi poets wrote that the beloved often destroys the comfort of the heart, so that the soul will not fall asleep in illusion. Even in Christian mysticism, the Desert Fathers spoke of leaving behind the comfort of the city to find the wilderness of God. For Taurus, the lesson is no different. Comfort is not evil, but it must never become the idol. The trap of comfort is subtle. It whispers that growth is dangerous, that safety is all that matters. But the soul of Taurus did not incarnate only to build walls around its heart. It came to learn resilience. To build beauty, yes, but beauty that can adapt, that can transform, that can survive the storm. When the bull learns to rest in comfort without clinging to it, the prison dissolves. Safety becomes sanctuary, not chains. And Taurus discovers that true security is not found in what can be held, but in the unshakable strength of the soul itself. Taurus holds tightly, with hands and heart and soul. The garden it builds, the love it nurtures, the beauty it surrounds itself with. All of these are treasures it cannot bear to lose. Yet life is relentless in teaching the bull that holding too tightly brings not safety, but suffering. The hidden path, the one that feels most unnatural to Taurus, is surrender. To let go, not in defeat, but in trust. To release, not because it is forced, but because freedom lies on the other side of loosening the grip. Astrology reveals this tension in the very bones of Taurus. Fixed earth resists movement. It is the sign most devoted to stability. Yet across the wheel, in Scorpio, is the lesson of endings, of death, of transformation. Taurus cannot escape this polarity. Again and again, it is drawn into the cycle of attachment and release. To refuse is to suffer. To surrender is to awaken. For the bull, letting go is not a choice life sometimes demands. It is the very curriculum of its soul. Mystics understood this paradox long before astrology gave it language. The Buddha taught that clinging is the root of suffering, that nothing in this world of form can be held forever. Sufi poets sang of the beloved who shatters every idol, stripping the heart bare so it may remember its true home. Even the story of Eden carries this hidden thread. To Taurus, every loss feels like exile, as if paradise has been torn away. But the deeper truth is that paradise is not lost. It was never in the possession at all. It lives in the heart, waiting to be remembered through surrender. Psychology confirms the cost of holding on. Trauma research shows how the refusal to release old pain, old stories, old attachments, keeps the nervous system locked in cycles of stress. Healing begins not through control, but through release. The body finally exhaling what it has carried too long. For Taurus, this is more than theory. Each heartbreak, each upheaval, each ending feels like the body itself breaking apart. But in that breaking, something loosens. The grip weakens. The soul learns that survival does not depend on what is held. It depends on the strength to keep living without it. The lesson of letting go is not about passivity. It is about trust. It is about seeing that love is not lost when the relationship ends, that beauty is not gone when the flower fades, that security is not destroyed when the form collapses. These were never possessions. They were reflections, mirrors meant to show the bull its own eternal wealth. The hidden path is this. Surrender is not weakness. It is power. It is not the end of the journey, but the doorway to the garden within. For Taurus, the invitation is clear. Release what you hold so tightly. Trust that what is yours cannot be taken, and what leaves was never yours to own. The soul's strength is not proven by how much it can preserve, but by how gracefully it can let go. And when Taurus surrenders, it discovers that nothing essential has ever been lost. Only illusions have fallen away, revealing the unshakable truth that was always there. Grief arrives in Taurus's life like a storm that cannot be avoided. The bull resists it at first, clutching at what is lost, aching for what can no longer be held. Each loss feels like a cruel undoing, as if the ground beneath its hooves has been pulled away. Yet over time, something remarkable happens. The weight of grief, though unbearable in the beginning, begins to change its shape. Slowly, quietly, it transmutes. The sorrow that once threatened to destroy becomes the very fire that strengthens. This is the hidden alchemy of grief. The way Taurus, through heartbreak, discovers an unshakable resilience. Astrology reveals why this sign carries grief so deeply. Fixed earth is bound to form, to permanence, to what can be touched and held. When form dissolves, when beauty fades, when love departs, Taurus feels shattered. Yet Saturn, the great teacher of time, often interacts with Taurus in ways that strip it of illusions. Through delay, through endings, through heartbreak, Saturn shapes the bull into something more enduring than stone. The grief that seemed unbearable becomes the crucible of endurance, the place where a softer heart and a stronger spirit are forged together. Mystics across cultures knew that grief was not merely suffering, but transformation. The Sufis wrote that the wound is the place where the light enters you. The Buddhists taught that sorrow itself becomes compassion, that only by knowing deep loss can one hold the pain of others tenderly. Even in Christian mysticism, the image of Mary at the cross is not just one of anguish, but of transmuted strength. Her grief became the archetype of eternal compassion. Taurus too lives this transformation. What is lost breaks the heart open, but what is born in its place is a depth of love that cannot be shaken by time. Psychology now affirms what mystics intuited. Researchers studying grief note that those who allow themselves to fully feel loss often emerge with unexpected growth, called post-traumatic growth. This phenomenon describes the way mourning reshapes meaning, values, and strength. For Taurus, this growth is almost inevitable. Because it clings so tightly, its losses are devastating. But because they cut so deeply, the transformation they bring is equally profound. The bull that once feared change becomes the bull that carries wisdom. The soul that once resisted letting go becomes the soul that embodies compassion. This is the alchemy. Grief takes the solidity of Taurus and softens it without destroying it. The earth cracks, but from the crack flows water. The flower dies, but from its decay comes the seed of new life. The heart breaks, but in breaking it expands, able to hold more than it ever could before. Taurus learns that grief is not the end of love. It is the proof of it. It is the echo that lingers after beauty fades, reminding the soul that what mattered most was never lost. When Taurus finally sees this, the fear of loss begins to dissolve. The soul understands that grief is not a punishment, but a passage. The storm does not erase the garden, it enriches the soil. Heartbreak does not diminish love, it deepens it. And in this realization, Taurus finds the hidden strength that was waiting all along. The strength not to avoid grief, but to let it transform. Through this alchemy, the bull discovers that it is not defined by what it has lost, but by what it has become. High above, in the velvet black of the night sky, the bull has been drawn for millennia. The constellation of Taurus shines with a brilliance that has guided sailors, marked the seasons, and inspired myth makers. Its horns stretch wide, reaching toward eternity, while the cluster of the Pleiades rests at its shoulder like a crown of fireflies. Humanity has always looked to these stars not only as a map of the heavens, but as a mirror of its own fate. For Taurus, the bull in the stars is not just a celestial picture. It is a mythic warning, a reminder that what seems fixed and eternal in the heavens is also a story of loss, desire, and transformation. Ancient cultures knew these stars well. To the Babylonians, Taurus was the bull of heaven, sent by the goddess Ishtar to punish Gilgamesh for spurning her advances. That bull was slain, but its death unleashed chaos and grief, showing that beauty and strength, even divine, cannot escape endings. In Egypt, the Apis bull was honored as sacred, embodying fertility and abundance. Yet even Apis was ritually sacrificed, teaching that cycles of life and death were inseparable. To the Greeks, the constellation of Taurus marked the story of Zeus disguising himself as a bull to abduct Europa. Beauty became possession, and possession became loss. Each myth carried the same message. Desire and power are bound to sorrow, and every attachment risks becoming exile. Astronomically, Taurus holds two of the most striking star clusters in the sky, the Hyades and the Pleiades. The Hyades form the face of the bull, a V-shaped cluster that has been seen as both nourishment and warning. The Greeks said the Hyades were sisters who wept endlessly for their dead brother, their grief turning into the rain that nourishes the earth. Even the stars associated with Taurus are marked by mourning, showing that love and loss are written into its very sky. The Pleiades, meanwhile, are another group of sisters pursued relentlessly by Orion. To save them, Zeus placed them in the heavens, a gesture that turned beauty into eternal distance. These stories whisper the same truth. What is most loved is often most fleeting. For astrologers, Taurus is always drawn back to these myths when interpreting the constellation. The bull's stars are bright, steady, and striking, but they are also entangled with tales of grief, abduction, sacrifice, and eternal longing. The heavens themselves echo the lesson Taurus must learn, that beauty, no matter how radiant, carries impermanence within it. The constellations remind us that even stars we think eternal are born, age, and die, their light only a memory across time. To look at Taurus in the night sky is to face both majesty and warning. The horns gleam with power, the clusters sparkle with beauty, but every story they hold carries the same shadow. That love can turn into loss. That possession becomes grief. That abundance demands sacrifice. The constellation itself becomes a mirror of the bull's earthly journey, radiant, magnetic, unforgettable, but always balanced by the reminder that nothing in form endures. Taurus, in seeing its image in the stars, is invited to recognize this cosmic truth. Permanence is illusion, but meaning is eternal. In the language of astrology, the North Node is the compass of the soul. It points not to what is familiar, but to what must be grown into. For Taurus, when the North Node rests in its sign, a collective awakening unfolds. It is as if the cosmos itself places a torch in the bull's hand and says, "Now is your time to lead." The lessons of patience, simplicity, and embodiment that Taurus carries quietly in its bones are suddenly thrust into the center of humanity's destiny. And yet, the call is never easy. For Taurus, the awakening of the North Node means stepping beyond the safety of what it has always known and allowing its most difficult lessons to become its greatest gifts. The North Node in Taurus has appeared during eras of upheaval, when humanity needed to be reminded of what is essential. In recent years, from 2022 to 2023, the lunar nodes shifted into Taurus and Scorpio, bringing themes of security, resources, and survival to the forefront of the collective stage. Economies trembled, supply chains broke, and people all over the world began questioning what stability really means. The scorpionic shadows of fear and control loomed large, but the Taurus North Node whispered a counterpoint. Return to the ground, to simplicity, to presence. It was an invitation to find wealth not in excess, but in enough. To discover safety not in possession, but in trust. For individuals with Taurus North Node in their natal charts, this destiny plays out even more personally. Their lives often begin with a Scorpio South Node pull. Tangled in crises, intensity, and the magnetic draw of drama, they feel addicted to the storm. But the soul's path is to release this fascination with survival through destruction, and instead to cultivate peace through creation. Their destiny is to become builders, gardeners, artists of life, to embody serenity in a world that thrives on chaos. The awakening comes when they realize that their greatest strength is not in controlling what they fear, but in creating what they love. Spiritual traditions echo this wisdom. The Tao teaches the power of stillness, the return to the natural order. Indigenous traditions remind us that the earth herself is our greatest teacher of patience and presence. Even the mystics who lived through collapse, whether in ancient Rome or during plagues in medieval Europe, spoke of the holiness of simple acts: baking bread, planting seeds, tending to what sustains life. This is Taurus's role in the great unfolding, to anchor humanity when the tide of fear threatens to wash it away. The North Node awakening is not about Taurus seeking personal comfort. It is about Taurus becoming the archetype of resilience for all. In an age of disconnection, it brings us back to embodiment. In an age of artificial speed, it reminds us of patience. In an age of endless consumption, it teaches us to cherish what we already hold. The destiny of Taurus is to become the ground beneath humanity's feet, not by resisting change, but by proving that stability can live within the heart. And when the bull finally embraces this path, it ceases to cling to permanence and instead becomes the steady flame guiding others home. As the world spins deeper into the turbulence of a new era, humanity finds itself facing the very lessons that have always belonged to Taurus. Questions of survival and security no longer belong only to individuals. They have become collective concerns. How do we feed billions as climates shift and crops fail? How do we redefine wealth when currencies falter and systems collapse? How do we honor the earth herself, who has been both provider and victim of human greed? These are not abstract questions. They are the living curriculum of Taurus, now written across the face of civilization. Taurus rules the tangible, the soil, the body, the senses, the resources that sustain life. In this age, humanity has stretched itself thin, chasing illusions of endless growth while forgetting the ground it stands on. The shadow of Taurus has played out globally, an obsession with possessions, consumption without limit, and comfort mistaken for progress. Yet the crises of the modern world, ecological collapse, economic instability, the rising epidemic of anxiety, are stripping these illusions bare. What once felt safe is revealed as fragile. What once was called abundance is exposed as imbalance. And so the bull steps forward again, this time not for a single soul, but for an entire species. Astrologically, the recent passage of the North Node through Taurus between 2022 and 2023 acted as a mirror for these themes. Collectively, humanity was pushed to reevaluate its relationship with food, money, and Earth itself. Scarcity, inflation, supply chains breaking. These were not punishments, but awakenings. They reminded humanity that true wealth is not in numbers on a screen, but in the fertility of soil, the purity of water, the strength of community. Taurus's lessons became unavoidable. To slow down, to simplify, to find beauty not in excess but in enough. Myth echoes these same truths. The story of the Bull of Heaven in Mesopotamian legend, sent to punish human arrogance, can be seen as a warning for today. When humanity forgets humility and overreaches, the forces of nature answer. In Egypt, the Apis bull embodied fertility and balance. But when imbalance came, even the sacred bull was ritually sacrificed, a reminder that harmony must always be renewed. These myths are not relics. They are warnings encoded in story, telling us that Taurus energy, if ignored, turns from provider to destroyer. psychology and spirituality offer another perspective. Collectively, humanity has lived in a state of restless desire, forever reaching for more, unable to be satisfied. But Taurus teaches presence, embodiment, the holiness of enough. Practices like mindfulness, ecological living, and sustainable economies are not trends. They are survival strategies that align directly with the bull's path. When we relearn how to be in our bodies, how to honor the earth, how to taste and touch and live without needing to consume endlessly, we begin to heal the collective wound. This is the collective Taurus initiation, to rediscover what truly sustains us, to face the shadow of greed, of attachment, of endless growth, and to replace it with balance, stewardship, and reverence. Humanity as a whole is being taught what the bull has always known, that beauty must be tended, that life must be honored, that stability is not built through excess, but through harmony. The age demands this awakening, and if humanity can learn Taurus's lesson now, then out of collapse can rise renewal, out of crisis can emerge a civilization rooted not in illusion, but in presence. Before birth, the soul chooses its path, its archetypes, its curriculum of growth. For some, this path is fire and revolution. For others, it is vision and wisdom. But for those born under Taurus, the path is woven with love, with beauty, with a longing for stability, and with a repeated lesson of loss. This is not punishment, it is initiation. The Taurus soul, before descending into the body, may have chosen to walk through the field of impermanence so that it could discover what cannot be taken. The contract is not written in cruelty, but in depth. It says, "You will build, and it will fall. You will love, and it will leave. You will plant, and the harvest will not always come. But through each loss, you will awaken to a truth greater than possession." Astrology reflects this choice in the polarity of Taurus and Scorpio. Taurus clings, Scorpio strips away. Together, they form a cycle of attachment and release, embodiment and transformation. To incarnate as Taurus is to step willingly into this polarity, knowing that the soul will taste sweetness and sorrow side by side. In this way, loss becomes the teacher, forcing the bull to grow beyond its natural instinct to hold. Each heartbreak becomes a doorway, each collapse an initiation into resilience. The contract is simple. What you cling to will be taken, not to destroy you, but to reveal your strength. Myth also encodes this initiation. Europa, carried away by the bull, lost her innocence in that abduction, yet became the mother of a new lineage of kings. The daughters of Atlas, the Pleiades, pursued and mourned, were lifted into the heavens to shine forever. Even the Apis bull, revered in Egypt, was ritually sacrificed to renew divine order. In each story, loss was not the end but the threshold. Taurus souls, in choosing this archetype, agree to walk that threshold again and again until the lesson is no longer resisted but embraced. Spiritual traditions echo this hidden wisdom. In Buddhism, the teaching of impermanence is the first step toward liberation. The Sufis sing of the beloved who takes away so that the heart may be cleansed of illusion. Christian mystics spoke of the dark night of the soul when every comfort is stripped, leaving only faith. The Taurus soul, bound by its contract, is immersed in these same initiations. It learns not through abundance alone, but through the emptying out that abundance makes possible. Modern psychology affirms this transformation. Grief studies show that those who experience repeated loss often develop greater empathy, wisdom, and inner strength. Resilience is not born of ease but of trial. For Taurus, this resilience is precisely the gold hidden in the contract. the soul agrees to endure the pain of loss so that, in time, it may embody the joy of surrender. What looks like exile is initiation. What feels like punishment is preparation. The Taurus soul, in its contract, does not agree to suffer needlessly. It agrees to remember that beauty is eternal even when form fades, to remember that love is not diminished by endings, to remember that the strength it seeks outside has always lived within. This is the true contract, not loss, but awakening through loss. And when Taurus embraces this, its soul rises beyond attachment, discovering freedom where once it only felt grief. The journey of Taurus is not meant to end in endless loss. Its story, though heavy with lessons of attachment and grief, carries within it a hidden destination, the return. Not a return to the same fields of clinging and fear, but a great return to abundance, one no longer possessed with trembling hands, but embodied with unshakable presence. For Taurus, the final transformation is to move from clutching what can never last, to becoming the very source of the wealth it once feared to lose. This shift begins when Taurus learns that abundance is not what is owned, but what flows. The garden is not beautiful because the bull can protect every blossom, but because life itself pours through it in cycles of blooming and withering, sowing and harvesting. The bank of the soul is not secured through walls of gold, but through the deep recognition that what is needed will arrive when it is time. In this awareness, Taurus begins to embody the mystery of abundance. It ceases to look outward with desperation, and instead becomes the ground itself, fertile, steady, endlessly renewing. Ancient traditions spoke of this transformation. In Egypt, the sacred bull Apis symbolized not only fertility, but also the life force that animated crops, cattle, and kingdoms. Its sacrifice was not destruction, but renewal, a sign that abundance must flow, not stagnate. In India, Nandi, the bull of Shiva, sits serenely outside temples, not as a figure of possession, but as the archetype of devotion and embodied presence. Both myths show that the bull's power is not in clinging to form, but in channeling life's eternal flow. Astrology encodes this truth as well. Taurus, when awakened, becomes not the hoarder of resources, but the steward of them. It shifts from the shadow of greed into the light of generosity. It learns that to give is to receive, because in sharing it becomes the channel through which the universe circulates its wealth. The fixed earth, once resistant, becomes the fertile ground that nourishes all. Psychology reflects this same awakening. Studies of gratitude and resilience show that those who cultivate presence and appreciation for what they already have experience a deeper sense of abundance than those who endlessly pursue more. For Taurus, this practice is revolutionary. What once felt like scarcity transforms into fullness when the bull learns to see abundance as a state of being, not a state of having. This is the alchemy of the Great Return, shifting the center of wealth from the outside world to the soul within. Spiritual traditions affirm that true wealth is never lost. The Tao speaks of the inexhaustible source flowing without effort. The Psalms declare that the Lord is a shepherd, ensuring nothing is lacking. The Upanishads remind us that the self is complete, whole, and unchanging. Taurus, when it ceases to grasp and begins to embody, discovers this same truth. Its soul contract was never about endless loss. It was about remembering the abundance that cannot fade. The great return is not to the possessions once lost, but to the presence that was always waiting. It is the return from exile into homecoming, from fear into trust, from clinging into embodiment. And when Taurus finally makes this return, it does not just live surrounded by abundance, it becomes abundance itself. The bull no longer guards the field, it becomes the field, fertile and eternal, a living sanctuary of beauty and strength. The awakening of Taurus does not arrive as a sudden lightning bolt. It comes like spring thaw, slowly, steadily, melting the ice of fear and revealing new ground beneath. For so long, the bull has circled the same field, holding, clinging, grieving, rebuilding, only to lose again. But when Taurus finally learns the hidden lesson, the cycle begins to dissolve. The signs of this awakening are subtle at first, like fresh shoots pushing through the soil. Yet each one is a revelation, proof that the soul is stepping beyond loss into a life of living presence. The first sign is peace where once there was panic, instead of grasping desperately when something begins to fade. Taurus feels a quiet strength rising from within. Relationships may end, possessions may be taken, but the bull no longer trembles. It mourns, yes, but without collapse. It has tasted enough endings to know that loss is never the final word. This calm acceptance is not indifference, it is wisdom, born from the deep knowing that what is essential can never be taken. Another sign is generosity. When Taurus awakens, it no longer clutches what it has. The fear of scarcity dissolves, and the bull becomes a fountain rather than a reservoir. It begins to give freely, time, love, resources, trusting that the flow will return. In ancient traditions, the awakened bull was always depicted as a sacred offering. The Apis bull was sacrificed to renew divine balance, and in that act, it became eternal. In the same way, the awakened Taurus discovers that true abundance grows, not in possession, but in release. There is also a new relationship with beauty. Where once beauty was something to own, to guard, to fear losing, now beauty becomes a practice of presence. The flower is no longer loved because it might last, but because it blooms now. Music, art, touch, taste, all are savored without the ache of trying to make them permanent. Mystics across traditions speak of this state as awakening to eternity in the moment. Taurus, when awakened, carries this same awareness. Psychology mirrors these truths. Research on resilience shows that those who have lived through loss and integrated it into their story often develop post-traumatic growth, a deepened sense of meaning, an openness to new possibilities, and a richer appreciation of life. This is precisely the Taurus awakening. The soul no longer fears endings. It embraces them as gateways. The bull, once chained to the weight of earth, learns to walk with grace, its strength no longer stubborn, but supple. Finally, the clearest sign is freedom from the old story. Taurus no longer repeats the mantra of, "Why does everything I love leave?" Instead, it begins to say, "Everything I love transforms, and so do I." This shift marks the end of the cycle of loss. The exile is over. The garden is no longer a place to defend, but a place to tend, to share, to renew. When Taurus awakens, it steps out of the endless loop of grief and into the eternal flow of presence. It discovers that loss was never the enemy, but the teacher. That love was never diminished by impermanence, but illuminated by it. And in this revelation, Taurus finds not only freedom for itself, but a gift for the world, the strength to live fully, beautifully, without fear of what may fade. Beneath the sorrow of endings, beneath the ache of beauty fading and the sting of loss, there is something in Taurus that cannot be broken. It is older than the body, older than the constellations that bear its name, older even than the myths that whisper of bulls sacrificed or stolen. It is the eternal spirit of the bull, the indestructible presence that survives every cycle of decay. While the form may vanish, the essence endures. While possessions crumble and loves are lost, the soul of Taurus remains steady, like bedrock beneath shifting sands. This is the deepest truth hidden within the sign, that permanence is not found in what is held, but in what cannot be destroyed. Astrology encodes this wisdom through Taurus's rulership of Earth. Earth is the element of matter, of the tangible, of that which supports life. Yet within the slow patience of Earth lies endurance that stretches beyond lifetimes. Mountains rise and fall, but stone persists. Forests burn, but the soil remembers. For Taurus, each loss is a reminder that while surface beauty may vanish, the ground beneath is eternal. The bull's spirit is not fragile. It is the steady pulse that continues long after form dissolves. Myth reflects this same indestructibility. In Mesopotamia, the bull of heaven could be slain, yet its presence haunted Gilgamesh forever. An archetype too powerful to vanish. In Egypt, the Apis bull was sacrificed in ritual, but each death was immediately followed by the search for its successor, proving that the spirit of Apis could not die. Even in Greek myth, when Zeus carried Europa away in the form of a bull, the story seeded a lineage that outlived empires. The form of the bull shifts, the faces change, but the essence continues. Spiritual traditions echo this teaching. In Hinduism, Nandi the bull is not merely Shiva's companion, but the eternal gatekeeper of the sacred. In Buddhism, the ox-herding pictures describe the taming of the bull as the taming of the mind, revealing enlightenment beyond illusion. Both traditions remind us that the bull is not simply flesh and bone. It is a symbol of the eternal force within, a presence that cannot be erased by time. Even psychology hints at this resilience. Survivors of loss often discover an inner strength they did not know existed. The ego crumbles, attachments fall away, yet something deeper endures, a self untouched by change. Carl Jung called this the self, the eternal archetype that underlies personality. For Taurus, awakening to this self is the ultimate liberation. It is the realization that while the garden may wither, the ground remains fertile. While love may end, the capacity to love is never lost. While life itself may fade, the spirit of the bull remains indestructible. This is the eternal bull, the unbroken spirit hidden beneath impermanence. It is what Taurus has been searching for through every loss, every exile, every heartbreak. The great paradox is that it was never outside, never in the possessions or the people or the beauty it clung to. It was always within, steady, eternal, unshakable. When Taurus finally sees this, it no longer fears loss. It knows that what is essential can never be taken, and in that recognition the bull stands eternal, not because it holds on, but because it cannot be destroyed. The journey of Taurus begins with hands that cling. It longs for stability, for beauty, for love that will never fade. It builds gardens, creates homes, surrounds itself with the touch and taste of abundance. Yet again and again, the world shows it that nothing outside can be held forever. Flowers wither, lovers leave, possessions crumble. The bull suffers, and in its suffering, it learns. Slowly, painfully, it comes to understand that what it has been searching for all along was never outside. The true wealth of Taurus is not in possession, but in inner freedom. This is the final lesson of Taurus, that freedom is worth more than gold, more than security, more than permanence. Wealth without freedom is a cage, no matter how gilded. Beauty without presence is empty, no matter how radiant. Taurus is asked to release its desperate hold on the external and discover the treasure hidden within. When it does, the clinging dissolves, and the bull stands with a quiet strength no loss can shake. Astrology encodes this wisdom in the polarity of Taurus and Scorpio. Scorpio strips away, revealing the shadows Taurus would rather ignore. Each ending, each transformation, forces the bull to look inward. What survives when everything external is taken? The answer is freedom, the soul that cannot be bound by attachment. This is why Taurus is tested more than most. It must learn to build, to love, to savor beauty, and then to let it go, again and again, until the lesson is clear. The treasure is within. Myth offers the same teaching. Europa was carried away by the bull, her innocence stolen. Yet from that loss, a new dynasty was born. The Hyades wept for their brother until they became stars. Their grief turned into radiance. Even the Apis bull, sacrificed in ritual, returned in a new form, proving that essence cannot be destroyed. Each story shows the same pattern. What is lost reveals what cannot be lost. The form dies, but the spirit remains. The true wealth is not what is taken, but what endures. Modern psychology echoes this in its studies of resilience. People who suffer repeated loss often discover what researchers call post-traumatic growth, a reorientation of values, a deeper sense of purpose, and a freedom from the illusions that once bound them. For Taurus, this is the essence of its path. It learns that freedom is born not of having more, but of needing less. The less it clings, the richer it becomes. Spiritual traditions affirm the same truth. The Tao teaches Wu Wei, effortless alignment with the flow of life. Buddhism speaks of non-attachment as the path to liberation. Mystics across traditions remind us that the soul is already complete, already whole, already free. Taurus's final initiation is to embody this, to stand rooted in the earth, surrounded by beauty, yet no longer enslaved by it. The final lesson of Taurus is this: true wealth is inner freedom, the freedom to love without fear of loss, the freedom to create without clinging to outcome, the freedom to walk through endings without collapsing. This is the wealth no thief can steal, no time can erode, no death can diminish. When Taurus finally learns this, it ceases to be trapped in cycles of grief. It becomes the embodiment of abundance itself, steady, radiant, unbound. The closing call of Taurus is the most delicate moment of his journey. After lifetimes of clinging, of mourning what was lost, of building only to see it fall, the bull is faced with a choice. Will it keep holding to illusions, the belief that permanence can be bought, that beauty can be caged, that love can be possessed? Or will it awaken to a greater truth, that what is eternal cannot be held in the hand, but only in the heart? This decision is not abstract. It happens in real moments of life. When a relationship begins to fade, when money slips away, when the body changes, when death takes someone beloved. Each moment becomes the mirror in which Taurus must decide. Will it collapse into the old cry of, "Why does everything I love leave?" Or will it step into the new song, "Love is never lost, only transformed"? The final initiation of Taurus is not about avoiding pain, but about seeing through it into the light of what cannot die. Astrology shows this test clearly. The moon, exalted in Taurus, brings the sweetness of comfort, the desire to hold what feels safe. But the moon also waxes and wanes, teaching that nothing stays. When Taurus clings to the waxing, it suffers. When it embraces the whole cycle, it awakens. The stars whisper the same warning through the myths tied to Taurus. Europa stolen, the Hyades weeping, the Apis bull sacrificed. Yet beneath each ending lies a seed of eternity. Taurus must choose whether to see only the ending or the seed. Spiritual traditions echo this fork in the path. The Buddha taught that clinging is the root of suffering, but release opens the door to freedom. The Sufis sang of a beloved who takes everything away, only to give himself in return. Mystics across cultures remind us what is truly loved cannot be lost, because it was never separate from the soul. Taurus's final awakening is to recognize this, not as an idea, but as lived reality. Psychology reflects the same choice. People who cling to loss often become trapped in cycles of bitterness and despair. But those who integrate their grief discover new meaning, resilience, and freedom. Post-traumatic growth is not the erasure of pain, but the transformation of it into wisdom. For Taurus, this transformation is the final treasure. So the question stands before the bull, as it stands before every soul touched by Taurus's lessons. Will you keep clinging to illusions, or awaken to the love that cannot be lost? The choice is yours. One path leads to endless repetition, to the ache of grasping and grieving. The other leads to freedom, to presence, to a wealth that no time or death can take. The bull's journey ends where it began, in the heart. But now, the heart is no longer chained by fear. It is open, steady, eternal. This is the true garden Taurus was always seeking. Not a place that can be taken away, but the inner paradise that endures. And when Taurus chooses this awakening, it ceases to lose. It finally remembers that love itself is indestructible. And in that remembrance, it is free. So now the choice is yours. If this journey through Taurus has spoken to you, don't let it end here. There are more mysteries, more truths, waiting for you in our other voyages. Watch them, share them. Let them ripple into the lives of those who need to hear. If you felt something awaken in you tonight, make sure to subscribe so you never miss the call of the soul again. Comment your reflections. Tell us what part of Taurus's journey resonated with you most. Like this video if the truth moved you. Share it with someone who is still searching, because the wisdom of the bull is not meant to be kept. It is meant to be lived. Together, we are remembering what cannot be lost. Together, we are walking the path from clinging to freedom, from fear into presence. And every step you take brings the collective closer to awakening. Welcome to the Hidden Voyage. Welcome home, Soul Whisper and Soul Creator. The Hidden Voyage